Eric Severson, and I am running for VP of CTE schools with the Arise Coalition. I would like to talk to you today. This is May 1st, the day that our ballots are beginning to be mailed out. So very important that we have a little discussion about one of our platform issues, paid parental leave. So you can see here, the United States is one of very few countries that doesn't guarantee any kind of parental leave at the federal level. So we're dealing with this patchwork system. So I just wanted to outline what changed in 2018 and why it isn't enough. So before 2018, you got nothing. So the UFT leadership at that time called it paid parental leave as in terms of that you were able to use the days in your cumulative absence reserve and take up to 6 weeks of time off if you were the birth parent, if you were the mother, if you were the person who gave birth to a baby. But if you were not the birth parent, you would have to just go on unpaid leave. You could go on to SOLAS and apply for family leave, but that's unpaid family leave. So really, it wasn't any kind of leave, because having to use up your days. Not everybody has 30 days in their car bank to, and so that was a terrible system. And people got nothing and basically had to just go back to work or have a negative number of days in their car and be having to scramble to catch up and not being able to take sick days after they'd just given birth to a child. It was a horrible system. And I remember being at the Brooklyn Borough office, being in a room when my daughter was a few months from being born, and just hearing all the horrified soon to be parents thinking, what is this? We're supposed to be a unionized profession here. So anyhow, starting in 2018, now there is 6 weeks of, and they're calling it paid leave. I'm calling it sort of paid leave, and I'll explain why. So if you're the parent who gave birth to a child, you can still use the days in your car, and then you can apply for 6 weeks of UFT parental leave. If you're the non-birth parent, the parent who didn't give birth to the child but is one of the parents, you're eligible to take this 6 weeks of UFT parental leave. However, and this is a direct copy from the UFT website, if you go on parental leave for those 6 weeks, you're off of payroll and you get a lump sum at the end of the 6 weeks that is equivalent to your current compensation. But during those 6 weeks, you are off payroll and you're not getting paid. It's only at the end. So that is a problem because, as we all know, hospital bills are expensive in this country. There are a lot of expenses with having a newborn child, buying a car seat, buying a crib, buying all the, stocking up on diapers, any number of things. So this is a time when most people's expenses are way up, and you're going to have to do without that 6 weeks worth of paychecks and wait until the end. So for anybody that's waiting on their check to make rent, anybody who's living, paycheck to paycheck or close to it, you're waiting until the end of a 6 week period to be paid. So it's, on paper, it sort of looks like paid leave, but having to go off payroll and get nothing. And as we all know, 6 weeks is not long enough. That 6 weeks is barely enough for the parent who gave birth to recover. Most other countries, you're getting 6 months to a year. 6 weeks is, very, very bare minimum. It's better than what we had before, but what we had before was basically nothing. So in the current UFT election, every caucus has now adopted what started with Arise, the Alliance of Retired and In-Service Educators. We were the first to call for doubling the paid parental leave from 6 weeks to 12. And that's hardly a radical proposal. That's what many New York State employees already get. Like many things, teachers in the DOE our TDA rate is lower than it is for professors in the CUNY system. Our parental leave is less than New York State employees get. So this is just calling for equity. It's not calling for anything beyond just 12 weeks, 3 months of paid leave, and that gap in payroll where you're not receiving any money for 6 weeks after the birth of your child, that needs to change as well. So yeah, Arise was the first to propose this, and everyone that's in Arise is a rank and file member of the UFT, either a working teacher or a retiree who has been through the struggle, who is there at the front lines dealing with these situations. So we're the ones who will fight the hardest to change this if you trust us with our vote, and I hope you do. So when you get that ballot for the UFT election, don't put it down, mail it in right away. The status quo will not change unless more of us vote this time than ever before. So thank you for listening. Solidarity.